It was the fall of 1979. My grandfather passed away in the hospital the previous month. My grandmother wanted to rent me our mobile home in Green Acres, Florida, so she could move back permanently to her home in Cocoa Beach, Florida. I was living in a high-priced apartment complex in West Palm at the time, so this would be my chance to save some money and help my grandma at the same time. I cleaned, painted, and fixed. Everything was fine for the first 3 months. Then on a dark and stormy night, wouldn't you know it, I was home alone, watching TV in the living room. I heard a thud. I looked around behind me, towards the master bedroom, and much to my shock, saw a white, smoky figure, unmistakably my grandfather, walk past the bedroom doorway. Well, the first thing I felt was this warm rush of blood through my body, which is probably better defined as fright. I jumped out of the recliner and just kind of stood frozen in the middle of the living room floor, staring at the bedroom waiting for him to walk by again. He never did, at least not that night. 6 months later, after I had pretty much forgotten about the incident, it was the middle of the day, and I was at the kitchen sink washing dishes, listening to TV. Something came on the program I wanted to see, so I walked to the living room, watched a few minutes, then turned around to go back into the kitchen. Yes, you guessed it. There was the exact same ghostly figure walking past the master bedroom doorway. This time I was taken back but braver. Maybe because it was daylight? I ran back to the bedroom, but there was nothing. No ghost, no smoke, not even a sense of smell. Nothing. I told some family and friends of both incidents and got the usual, "Are you crazy? Yeah, right" kind of looks. 1981, 2 years later. My life is very different. My Cuban girlfriend's mother is living with us. She stays home all day cooking and cleaning. One night at dinner, she tells us about the ghostly figure she has been seeing walk past her bedroom doorway. She didn't want to say anything because she didn't want us to think she was crazy. Needless to say, I was in shock and wanted to know more. She couldn't tell me more. She only saw on numerous occasions a white ghostly figure walking past the master bedroom doorway. But what did it look like, I asked. She described my grandfather to a T. She had never met him. He usually wore a beige khaki work shirt and pants, a hat, and always chewing on an unlit cigar. I ran for my box of photographs, found one of my grandfather, and now she was in shock. "That's the ghost," she cried. "That's him." 1992, 11 years later. My grandparents' mobile home had been long sold. I lived in Okeechobee County, Florida for about 5 years, with a little plot of land and a lot of farm animals. I was driving up to the lake one day to go fishing. While I was sitting at the traffic light, I glanced over at the mobile home business in the corner. In the rear of the lot were the used mobile homes. Was that my grandparents' mobile home I could see way in the back? There was that warm rush of blood again. Called the creeps this time. I had to be sure, so I drove over to investigate. It was pretty much in shambles. No front door, broken windows, holes in the floor, completely falling apart. Is this really it? What was it doing in Okeechobee about 100 miles from Green Acres? I still had to be sure, so I went inside snooping around. No, I didn't see any ghosts, but I found the weathered plastic numbers from the top of the old mailbox of the Green Acres address on the floor of my old bedroom closet. I will never understand if the ghost was trying to communicate something, or why it chose to only show itself to my ex-girlfriend's mother and me. But more strangely, why did that old trailer seem to follow me all the way out to the country in Okeechobee? Oh yeah, I didn't take that souvenir I found in the bedroom closet. After I found those plastic numbers, I dropped them in a mad rush to get out of there. This happened to me in the summer of 1991, and it's all true. I was pregnant with my son, who is now 13. I have a daughter who is 15, who at the time was 2. My husband and I moved into a trailer house. I always felt uneasy there, but passed it off. This trailer was a 3-bedroom. The layout of the house was so: the front door, the living room. To the left of this, a bedroom. On the right side of the living room was the kitchen, then a hall. In the hall to your left was a bedroom, then the bathroom, and then straight ahead was the master bedroom. We never noticed anything unusual until my brother moved in with us. He slept in the bedroom next to the living room. This room always stayed ice cold. We know it wasn't the air conditioner because it had broken and the landlord couldn't fix it. If you've ever been in Texas during the summer, it is extremely hot. This room was always cold. Some other strange things that occurred there were the fact that my two dogs would never go down the hall. One day, I was cleaning and my daughter was in the first bedroom of the hall. She was in there playing and I heard her talking to someone and someone answered her back. I ran to her room and no one was there. I asked her who she was talking to and she said Tommy. I instantly felt a cold spot and something breathed down my neck. I went into premature labor. After I spent 3 days in the hospital, I went home only to go back into labor the moment I walked into the door. I finally told my mom what was going on, and she told me to ask what it wanted. I got back home after a few days and nothing happened. Then one day, my daughter fell asleep in my bed. I decided to watch some TV for a while. When I sat down on the couch, she started crying. When I got to my room, she was still asleep, but I could still hear the crying and it wasn't her. That night, I went into labor again. A week or so later, I was washing dishes when I sensed something behind me. I turned around, but seen nothing. I finally asked it what it wanted, and it growled at me. Needless to say, I grabbed my daughter and left. I never went back and never went into premature labor again. My mom thinks the spirit wanted the soul of my son. What do you think? Any ideas? Sorry this was so long. Thanks for your time. When I was about 11 or 12 years old, I went over to my best friend's house at night. She was sitting outside on her front lawn, looking at the house directly across the street. I asked her what she was watching for as I sat next to her. She said that for the last couple of days, she noticed some strange people coming to the house, some wearing black robes. She liked the lady very much and visited her often, so she told me earlier in the day she had gone and knocked on the door to check on her. A stranger answered the door and then the woman's husband came to the door. He was very sharp with her and told her everything was okay and not to bother them anymore. After she finished telling me this, we sat in silence, contemplating the situation. All of a sudden, the camper owned by my friend's family, which was parked in the driveway to our right, began shaking violently. Our first thought was an earthquake. We lived in California. Quickly we noticed that nothing else was moving. As the camper continued to shake, we each ran around either side until we met on the other side. Nobody was moving it from the outside. Somebody must be inside, we thought. My friend ran into the house to get her father, yelling someone had broken into the camper. Just as she and her father had come around the corner, the shaking stopped. Her father unlocked the camper and bounded in. We stayed out of the way, ready to get help. After a couple of minutes, her father came out looking pissed off. Was this a joke, he asked. No one was in the camper. All the closets and drawers had been opened and everything was flung all over. We were practically in tears, trying to convince him that we hadn't done anything. I guess he believed us, because then he went in the house and yelled at her brother. About 6 or 7 years ago, my family lived along Tays Valley Road before the big industrial boom of Putnam County. Seems like it went from a farming community to a city right before my eyes. Well, anyway, we rented land off of a fellow by the name of Jim Umberger. On this land was an extravagant pre-Civil War, almost Victorian house. It was simply beautiful. Off to the side of this massive antique sat our trailer. Now, I was awfully young through all of this, and kids will have their fabled ghost stories. But there was something quite odd about this house. Something was downright sour. The story had it, and I know nothing of the truth in this. A family was brutally butchered in the house. Back then, there was a whole lot of nothing for miles around, so no one even found these folks for a good long time. As a youngster, I had the creeps about anything just about, but I've never been quite as frightened of a place as I was here. The place had an eerie air to it. To make things even more insane, my step-grandmother Evelyn died of brain cancer there, in our trailer of course. My other grandmother's entire cancer-eaten body seized up and shut down on her, yet she died officially in a hospital. Strange things went on at this trailer. Pockets of not cool but cold air in the middle of July, for example. Once in the winter, my mother was out on the town. My younger brother and I were watching some TV when there was a knock on the door. There, on the freshly fallen snow, was nothing. No footprints, no tire tracks, absolutely nothing. Needless to say, I spent the rest of that night with my head buried under the covers. Speaking of doors, once I heard the doorbell ring. Seemed innocent enough, but we didn't have a doorbell. Pictures falling off the wall, creaky floors, and long sleepless nights were only minor nuisances we had to deal with every day. The most disturbing incidences, however, and the most annoying, were when the smoke detectors, located in various parts of the trailer, would take turns going off one at a time. After that, they'd go off simultaneously, quite a ruckus. For a long time, I thought I was the only one who felt a presence. Then one night, my mother went completely irate, screaming, "Show yourself, Evelyn. I'm tired of these frickin' games. Show yourself." We never saw anything. Things continued as they were until we moved. Mr. Umberger sold the land to someone, and it became Southbrook, a ritzy subdivision with $500,000 houses that wouldn't hear of our humble trailer deprecating their property. However, I believe they'll get theirs. Although they tear the house down for the project, there was a well and a system of underground streams and springs, which probably rendered the whole operation illegal. The thing about the springs and wells may not sound important, but in my own personal research, I found negative forces and spirits can channel themselves through waterways. I'd like to see how Southbrook lights its new neighbors. I believe I have some pictures of that house somewhere in the mess that is my apartment. Thanks for reading. This is a true story that happened to me, my friend, my boyfriend, his brother, and my brother about a year ago. About a year ago, my friend Courtney, my boyfriend Josh, his little brother Brian, my little brother Jared, and I were staying down at our trailer in Sagner. It was about 3 in the morning, and Jared and Brian were already asleep. In our trailer there was a downstairs, the living room, and an upstairs, the kitchen, 3 bedrooms, dining room. And when you walk out the front door, you are in a carport, looking out into a blank field. Well, another friend of mine had lived in the house before me and said that there was an old lady that walked down the hall at night. Me, Josh, and Courtney were downstairs watching TV when we heard some noise come from the bedroom Brian and Jared were sleeping in. So we ran in and checked on them. There was nothing there, so we sat back down on the couch and started watching TV again. About 15 minutes later, we heard what sounded like someone knocking on the door. So I went and looked through the peephole, but when I didn't see anything, I walked outside and looked out into the field. I listened really closely and heard what sounded like a knife being sharpened. I ran in the house and deadbolted the door. Then it sounded like someone was trying to get into the back door, which was boarded up. I started getting this really scared feeling in the pit of my stomach. I was sitting on the couch. Josh had his arm around me, and the front door flew open. I jumped up and ran into the bedroom that Jared and Brian were in. Josh and Courtney soon followed. They came in, and we locked the bedroom door. We sat there for about 15 minutes and heard somebody walk in, up the steps, and stop at the door. At this point, we were really freaking out. Suddenly, I then heard my stepmom's voice on the outside of the door say, "What are you doing in there?" We told her the whole story, and she just laughed and blamed it on the wind. Thanks for reading. It all started when my Aunt Crystal moved into a little trailer that belongs to my grandmother. Now I live there, going on 3 years. There were 3 occasions when these ghosts were encountered. We're still not sure if it was the same ghost. They both happened at night, in the same room. Well, on with the stories. The first person to see the ghost was my aunt, Crystal. She would always stay up late and wait for her husband Tony to come home from his night shift. This is how she says it happened. She was in the back room of the trailer, built on, cleaning up. This room was used as a playroom for my 3 little cousins. So she is back there cleaning when she starts to feel a cold chill or a draft, which is normal because the trailer isn't but about 50 feet in front of a creek. So the place stays chilling in the winter and humid in the summer. So she got up and changed into a sweatshirt. When she re-entered the room to resume on cleaning, she felt an eerie presence in the room, like someone was looking over her shoulder. She finally decided to turn and look, and that's when she saw it, a small figure over by the closet, just staring at her and seemed to be smiling. One of those evil, wretched smiles. She jumped up screaming for the ghost, or whatever it was, to leave now. My aunt never saw the ghost again. She said after she yelled for it to leave, the strange feeling went away, and when she went back into the room, she noticed it had warmed up. On another occasion, it was my Uncle Denny, my aunt's brother. He needed a place to stay for a while, so she gave him that same back room. Well, I'm not going to go into detail about the room and just tell you what happened to him. All I know is he underwent a series of different events all in one night. He was in the bed not quite asleep, but kinda dozing off, one night in late October. The first thing that happened to him is that he felt a gentle tug on the covers. He was still kind of out, but it was enough to wake him up a little. He ignored it and pulled the covers over his head. Then he says about half hour later, he heard a small click and the stereo that he had set up beside his bed had come on. He loves to listen to Tupac a lot, so that is what was playing. He had been listening to it earlier, so that it was really loud, and there were other people trying to sleep, so he reached over and turned it down. Now, he was starting to get a little scared. He sat up and studied his room. Nothing. But, despite the fact that he couldn't see anything in the room, he thought that didn't mean that there was nothing there. So he got up and opened his door. Now keep in mind, this is something that he never actually does, no matter what. He didn't leave the room, but he did get pretty spooked about it. When Crystal woke the next day, she asked him why'd he left the door open. He said so whatever was in there with him could leave if it wanted to. He swears to this day that after he opened the door, nothing else happened. The third and final story is about my encounter with the bedroom ghost. After my aunt moved out of the trailer, my sister, mother, and stepdad moved in. Guess where my room was? Yep, the back room. Well, this is what happened. I love to read, and I love to read by lamplight at night in my room with the door closed tight. After about 2 months living in that trailer, I still hadn't seen anything. Just when I was starting to believe that my aunt and uncle were just trying to scare me with those stories, I finally had my little experience with the bedroom ghost. Anyways, I was laying in my bed and reading one of my mystery books one night in December, I think, when I felt a little bit of pressure on my bed, kind of like someone was sitting down at the foot of it. I figured my cat Tabby had been hiding under the bed and had jumped up on top of it or something, so I just kept on reading. Then about 15 minutes later it happened again, only this time it was like someone had flopped down on my bed, which is too much for my little cat to have done, so I sat up in surprise. No one was there. I sat there and just stared, waiting for another flop or something to hit my bed, and it didn't come. I figured at this point it was just my imagination. Then, just when I'd settled down and began to read again, it happened again, more like someone jumping on my bed. I was sure it hadn't been my imagination that time, so I jumped up and ran out of the room. I didn't come back into the room that night. I just bunked on the couch. Well, there you have it. 3 stories that I swear are true. Thank you for reading this, and have a good one. Hey, it's Phantom here. And all the time that I say Phantom, it's like breath of fresh air. If you don't mind my broken language. Ha! See, the thing about me though is, I speak perfect English. I was born in America, but every now and then, I get the broken language going, like I is going to the store, or I am a R-man. So, you know what it means, you know what I'm saying? So, just don't ignore actually do ignore what I'm saying, because you know what? I'm a phantom, and phantoms do get recognized only as ghosts, and that's about it. So, guys, I just don't understand why you would want to listen to a ghost. I mean, don't take advice from someone who died, okay? That just doesn't make any sense. Especially if you're living and you're trying to live even longer. That doesn't even work. Quick, Phantom, distract him with another trailer park story before you end this video. Okay. There was a man who lived in a trailer park, and he was ugly. They couldn't figure out how they could medically save him, so they just killed him. All right, guys. I'm so sorry that I'm bothering you with these stupid outros. But anyway, if you liked the video, and I know I did, honestly, this is one of my favorite subjects to make. I think I'm the only one who really does these stories, but then again, I don't know. I'm just kind of cocky and I think I know everything. But don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and definitely share this video, because if it weren't for me being a weirdo, I don't think this video would ever get made, because it takes a lot of this brain power to actually make this video and then end with a silly outro at the end. So, you know what, guys? Just comment, like, share, subscribe. I really love comments. You guys know that, and I love all of you guys. There's nothing that I don't like about you guys. So, you know, just go ahead and comment, and good night, good morning, and I'll see you in the next video.